about fragmentation, there's fragmentation from a distribution standpoint, which again, I think a lot of people can focus on, but there's fragmentation from an experiential standpoint. What does that mean? You've got multiple different audiences, how do you cater to all of them? So part of the amazing thing about what Beyond Sports can do for us is allow us to take one set of data and create 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different experiences. One could be with Disney for kids, one could be built for bettors with lots of stats and data, and you can distribute them across different platforms, increase monetization, and think about future revenue streams. And I'd like to say there's no such thing as media rights anymore. Like media rights negotiation, or what's your role? I work in media, like that's over. We have content, we have IP, we license it to companies. That's it. Like it can be for media, it can be for gaming experiences, it could be for metaverse, it could be for streaming. It could be, there's like a new matrix for how you think about rights and how you sell your rights. But first, you have to establish the value of those rights. And some of these things don't exist yet. And we want to make sure we're establishing the value by really focusing on the experience before we get to how do we sell this and make money with our partners.
I couldn't agree more.
That's a great answer. I love that.
We already have some coming through, so let's start from the top. Carla DeMarcus, which is in front of me. How do you expect Gen Z behaviors and traits remain unchanged or evolve and converge to previous generations as this cohort grows in age? Who would like to take that?
Well, I think that some of the core behaviors that we talked before about engagement and the idea that people today don't want to sit back and watch something passively for 2 hours on a screen, I don't see that changing, and I think that the technology and the products, and we talked about the NBA app and what everything Michael's working on, is going to continue to evolve with this desire, and I don't see the cohorts taking step backs from that regard. If anything, I think there'll be better and more enhanced products available.
If I may just add to that in a sentence, I also think that while technologies do kind of drive forward the way that we consume or we engage with content, I think it's also going to have an impact on media rights and basically what our league's allowed to do and what our broadcaster is allowed to show and when. It's not something that's going to happen tomorrow, but it is something that I think eventually will evolve with technology, and the ability to put out different types of content in real time on different environments would also kind of basically change the expectation of Gen Z. So I think it's a constant involvement where, one thing affects the other and it's kind of a circle. So I think it's definitely going to evolve.
I think this next question is
basically, I don't know if anyone in the room has the NBA app. If not, I urge you to download it because it's a really, really cool experience. And they have this new thing called the stories for inside their app. And wherever you go in the app, all the content is vertical. It tells multiple types of stories. It can be, again, just kind of tailored to each fan's preferences. But most importantly, in my opinion, is that it's controllable. So I don't need to watch through the entire highlight, but I can just basically tick through and kind of find what I want to watch. So I think
I was interviewed for the job by a CEO. His thing was like, how do you build a media business? So Formula E is very different to traditional sports, and I think probably more similar to esports, although the purpose is slightly different, as we know. We were built on the purpose, the sport was founded on a purpose. When I was at ICC, I remember working on the strategy for global cricket with the chief executive, and the discussion was like, we have to keep the purpose on top. So we were finding the purpose. Obviously it has a purpose, grassroots, but every traditional sports has now started putting the purpose at the top of the strategy. Formula E didn't have that problem, it was built on purpose. And actually the way it was built was our revenues came from our partners. So it was a sponsorship-led business, and it still is. So most of our revenues come from sponsors. They bought into this vision that this is where the world is going to go. But guess what? People don't watch sport because it's sustainable. You may appeal to a target audience because it's sustainable, but unless your sport is super exciting and entertaining, you're not going to.
Completely. I think to start off with, there probably were quite a few people around football and things that looked at us a little bit askance and thought, okay, what is this? Is it a gimmick? Is it just for the documentary? Is it this, that, and the other? I think one of the things we did, very early on, and we were very clear about, was that we acknowledged that the three of us did not know how to run a football club. I was the lifetime football fan. They were both neophytes to the world of football, but I was very aware there was a vast gap between what I knew as a fan and what the knowledge base that was required to run a football club. So that's where Sean came in. And that's where Fleur Robinson came in, and that's where Les Reed, who joined us on the kind of football technical side of things, came in. Our philosophy was, let's find people who know what they're doing and empower them. I think often you can see lots of examples around football historically of people coming in sometimes from other businesses. I mean, well, I'm a successful businessman. I know how to run a plastics business. This football club thing can't be all that different. I'm going to run it the same way you run a plastics business. And, they interfere with signings and tactics and whatever else it may be. And one of the things that I think, Sean may disagree, that we've been pretty good about is remaining true to that philosophy of saying, right, let's find people who know what they're doing, back them, empower them, and then we will enjoy the process.
Reimagine, redefine what partnership should stand for. Trying to really challenge like the traditional partnership model, okay? So we thought that was a perfect moment, but that wasn't enough, because if you think reimagine, redefining today, that undoubtedly connects with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, right? Because these are the generations that are really changing the world. By the way, these generations, have experience and they are still experiencing really hard times, mentally, physically, emotionally, right? So we thought, okay, that's a big challenge. We want to rethink, redefine partnership, and we want to do it first for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. So the question we asked ourselves is there a partner that could really join forces and support us on that huge challenge? And
as part of data quality and volume of the club, data is so important in reaching fans, in creating long-term relationship with fans. Obviously, data helps drive what to do on the platform. Has that now become sort of a
the answer is yes, of course. Thanks to this partnership and thanks to the activations that we're doing, I just put example of Drake Ruffle, right? But we are doing more things, and we're investing heavily, right, in the club. We are not the only ones, but I think that this partnership is definitely helping us to improve the quality of the first party data. Yes.
Mark, you'd agree, obviously Spotify is a massive house of first party data.
Yeah, it is, and we're a very data driven company, and
very protective of it as well.
So we're working closely with the club to work out how we can combine some of our data assets and to shape future learnings of the partnership. I think what's really interesting for us is understanding geo breakdowns. That's very interesting to understand where club fans sit and how we can work to best activate them to either showcase new artists or for users to discover Spotify for the first time. Hardware manufacturers, mobile phone carriers, and gaming and social media platforms. So when Barcelona came to the table and we had our first meetings, I think the thing that blew our mind initially was, wow, this is enormous, right? Hundreds of millions of fans around the world. Other than like social media platforms, there aren't that many partners that can offer that scale across certainly digital and physical platforms. So the first thing was, wow, this is big. Secondly, this is truly global. Spotify is in close to 200 markets today, and the footprint between where we are and where Barcelona fans are is pretty amazing. They're also very, very present in some of our emerging markets where we still got some big growth. And then thirdly, Barcelona were incredibly agile. We were going through the initial discussions and we had some ideas and some concepts about moving this from what would be a traditional sponsorship to a more integrated partnership. They were extremely receptive with some of the boundaries we were prepared to push and some of the innovative ideas that we had.
Well, look, I think in stage one of the evolution of sport, the revolution of sport, whatever you want to call it, what you're seeing now is a great deal of fragmentation of the product and of the experience. And this changes from market to market around the world. So we're in the UK, we're typically focused here, but it's happening everywhere. The sports experience is pretty fragmented. Nobody yet has really found a way of bringing it together into a single, seamless, frictionless experience for the fan. And I think, to some extent, because live sports is so powerful. I remember at BT, why did we get into live sport? Was because it helped us to sell broadband and telephone packages for sure. But when we launched sport as part of BT, we really saw the magic of sport. We saw that in the session we just had on Wrexham, what sport can do for not just a team, but for a whole community. But we also saw the power of sport. The power of live sport particularly to drive consumer behaviour, to make consumers do something. In that case, it was to switch broadband platforms, most of you might have tried this once, maybe you don't typically try it twice because it's really not very convenient and easy to do. But sport is one of the very, very few things that can get people to change from one platform to another. And because of that, broadcasters, streaming companies, I think, have tended just to rely on live distribution. Live remains incredibly important. That isn't going to change. But consumers actually, I think, today want much more. They want to socialise, they want news, they want entertainment. A lot of the things that Wrexham were talking about actually, that is a fantastic case study in how to create media value.